Passt mal auf.
Ich werde von der Polizei gesucht, weil ich in die Welt hinaus schreie, dass die bestehende Ordnung untergehen wird. Eine Ordnung, die ihr mit Tränengas erreicht und mit Gummiknippeln, Bankiers, Richtern, Henkern, Offizieren, Kirchenbossen, Politikern und ähnlichen Vertretern der Macht geduldet wird. Antisystemisch. Der Gesuchte verbreitet utopische Ideen und muss als gefährlicher Anführer bezeichnet werden. Nationalität unbekannt. Der Gesuchte ist ohne festen Wohnsitz.
Welcome to the final days. Today is March 26, 2019. Today we will be viewing 3 celestial orbs at one time. A gigantic machine being towed through space, purple lines shooting down from the sky, a total solar eclipse, and more sky anomalies never mentioned by mainstream media. The purpose of this channel is to show the viewers that we are living in the very last days according to the Holy Bible, and to explain why this is good news and cause for celebration, explained later in this video. The images we are viewing were obtained over the past few days from the Federal Aviation weather cameras in Alaska. Each image is 10 minutes apart from the next, forming a time-lapse video when strung together. The southwest-facing weather camera in Casaglook, Alaska, shows 3 different orbs at one time. At first we don't see much, but some contrast brings out 2 of the 3 orbs in this image. Accompanying the most prominent orb is the craft that we always see flying between the viewer's perspective and the celestial orb. I'll go through most of this footage exactly as it came off the camera. Then later, it will be shown with some contrast added to enable the viewing of all 3 celestial orbs. Again, we see these vertical purple lines from many different cameras. They always come in pairs, with the first purple vertical line being much darker and more pronounced than the second vertical line. Here's the second vertical line, fainter than the first, but still visible. Many cameras show these purple vertical lines. Notice the cloud in front of the celestial object. This is one of the many reasons we know this can't be a lens flare. Clouds can never be in front of a camera-produced lens flare. Another reason we know this cannot be a lens flare is because this object is rotating much faster than our Sun, which only rotates once every 27 Earth days. Here are the same images we just viewed, but with contrast applied in order to see the detail of the celestial objects better. When applying contrast to an image, it's important to avoid getting clouds, sun glare, or other bright objects within the area of the contrast. That's why you'll see in some of these contrast images where I've excluded clouds from the contrast area, it looks a little bit blotchy. These contrast images show the 3 orbs. Look closely and you can see all 3. Something else these contrast images do show is a piece of equipment hanging down from above. This equipment is massive and always seen just below NASA's circular glare that was launched into place between the Earth and the Sun, much closer to the Earth, of course. Many of my previous videos show and explain the equipment that produces the circular glare, so I won't take time to explain it here. Remember this equipment because we will be seeing more of it in just a minute. These are all signs that we are living in the very last days. Jesus is describing the last days in Luke chapter 21, verse 25, when he says that we will see signs in the sky, indicating the very last days, the end of the age. The small oblong-shaped item that we see dangling down from the top of the screen is only the bottom portion of a gigantic mushroom-shaped object that floats beneath NASA's circular glare. We'll be seeing this in detail in just a minute. This equipment is only visible when directly underneath NASA's circular glare, which illuminates it enough for the cameras to pick it up. Because it is only visible in close proximity to NASA's circular glare, this leads us to believe that it's visible within the infrared color spectrum only, and thus not normally visible to the naked eye. I drew circles around the 3 orbs for anyone who may not have good enough screen contrast for viewing these objects. They are faint, but if you have adequate screen contrast, you will be able to see all 3 objects. These close-ups with contrast help to see that the most visible of the three celestial orbs has a very fast rotation. The craters and markings on it really help to identify the fact that it is rotating quickly. Our April 15th video showed this footage from the west-facing camera in Arctic Village. This looks like a cloaked, mushroom-shaped equipment that is only visible directly underneath NASA's circular glare. I've added contrast and also traced around this object to give viewers a general idea of its shape. The craft in the front seemed to be towing the equipment around as if it were a tugboat pulling a gigantic balloon through space. This is obviously part of the equipment in place to hide this planetary system. This enormous contraption seems to be acting like a gigantic umbrella to shade the celestial objects from NASA's light, preventing them from becoming illuminated and thus even more visible. The craft may also steer NASA's circular glare around these celestial objects to avoid impact. These are more of the signs and wonders of the last days. The south-facing camera in Shagaluk, Alaska, shows a huge lens in the sky. We've been seeing these geostationary lenses for a few years now, and from many different cameras. People also see these with the naked eye as well. There are hundreds of these nearly invisible lenses installed throughout the skies in order to bend light and remove focus, to hide the inbound planetary system, which will make its closest pass to Earth during the 7-year, biblically foretold Great Tribulation, which will be starting very soon. The east-facing camera, located in Tuluxac, Alaska, demonstrates how effective the atmospheric chemicals are at hiding enormous celestial objects from the public's view. Here, we see a heavily cratered, rotating orb rising up in the morning. We know this can't be a lens flare of the sun because it's rotating quickly, and it's highly textured. Additionally, it's hidden behind the clouds part of the time. A camera-produced lens flare can never become hidden behind clouds in a photo. The west-facing camera in Ijigig, Alaska, shows some very strange shapes here, possibly something round, but it's difficult to tell for sure. But as NASA's circular glare passes in front of this object, our real sun passes behind, concealing the eclipse. Perhaps the most interesting thing about this footage is the fact that NASA's circular glare pulsates as it passes over this celestial object, almost as if the celestial object is somehow affecting the functionality of NASA's manufactured light. These are more signs of the last days. In just a minute, we will observe a complete solar eclipse with all of its equipment in full flare. Approaching the last days is cause for celebration with faithful followers of Jesus Christ, because He is removing from earth those believers who are living in holiness. This is commonly called the rapture, which will take place quickly and quietly just before the dawn of the Great Tribulation. The New King James Version of Luke chapter 21, verse 36 reads, "Watch therefore and pray always, that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass." Jesus is referring to the Great Tribulation. He is saying that those who are counted worthy will escape all God's wrath. To be counted worthy, we must be living in holiness. A link in the description box below discusses what holiness is and how to achieve it. The sun is beginning to get lower as viewed from the west-facing camera in Chilkat, Alaska. We see two celestial objects. The one in the upper left corner is being passed over by NASA's manufactured light, with the real sun passing behind it. The next thing we observe here is a complete total solar eclipse. The manufactured circular glare always stays in front of the celestial object, while the real sun passes behind it, concealing the eclipse from view. All of the odd-shaped items in this footage are reflections of the equipment used to conceal these daily eclipses. These close-ups of the footage we just saw provide an idea of how enormous this fast-rotating, cratered sphere is when compared to the landscape in the photo below it. As mentioned in several previous videos, if we draw a straight line from the equipment's pink reflection to the center of the artificial light, the black dot, the eclipsing object always falls upon that line, without exception. Ignore the smudge in the middle of the image. It's been there for a very long time. This is the east-facing camera in Attawapiskat, Ontario in Canada. Focus your attention to the upper right corner of these images. There is a man-made object in the path of NASA's light as it crosses the screen in perfect synchronization with the sun. The sun is currently behind a dark nebula. To see more on the nebula, watch my March 29 video. I don't have a clue as to what this object is, but it definitely appears manufactured. Here are some close-ups to help see it a little better. In these last two frames, I placed a black circle over the circular glare so that the contrast would work better, in hopes to see more details on this object. Once again, we see how effective the atmospheric chemicals are at hiding enormous celestial objects from the public's view. From the east-facing weather cam in Ninipitchuk, Alaska, we see a heavily cratered rotating orb rising up in the morning. We know this can't be a lens flare because it's hidden behind the clouds part of the time. Please help others find this video in searches by clicking on the thumbs up. Thank you very much for doing that. In Haines, Alaska, the southwest-facing camera captured those purple vertical lines we often see on lots of these weather cameras. These next few frames will tell you how to accept Christ into your life in the event you are seeking Him. Simply pause the screen if you need more time to read the text.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Claudia Elzers, Planetics Research and Professional Physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one's entitled Planetics is the Destroy System, and it is here. Now, I've been researching what is going on in the solar system since the middle of 2016, and I believe I now have a good understanding of what is going on. I started out from the point of view that Dr. Robert Harrington and many others had, that a star, a brown dwarf, or perhaps another star system was going to come into the solar system and was going to cause a huge cataclysm, and most of the Earth's population would die, civilization would be destroyed, and so we would have to start from nothing again. So when I started observing objects in the sun's corona, we were much larger than this. I thought that there were even stars that referred to them as brown dwarfs. As a student, I had been told that stars go through the brown dwarf stage before becoming red dwarfs, and since these objects seem capable of still emitting sunlight, I call them brown dwarfs. They always seem to be depleted in energy due to the But the last was C1 monograph was mounted on the Solar spacecraft, which apparently was only launched on December 2nd, 1995. So how can we have an image with the timestamp of 1986? And this is not the only one. There are about 657 images exactly from LASCO C1 with magnetic field data inserted. That's what we have here. And they all have timestamp for the supposed spacecraft on which this instrument was mounted was launched. What does that tell us? It tells us that the timestamps on these images are not accurate, are not to be believed. And obviously, there were spacecraft out there observing the sun long before we even knew it was there. Since the sun seems to have gone dark by 1998, the counting systems have to be at least 22 years old. So perhaps it has to do with that. We might get time to find the system and find the sun shining. So the above images also show that the sun's corona, which is supposed to be a spark of gas plasma, filled with solar structures. See the plots where in light certain visibly autonomous non-effective gas plasma. So these are the small satellite photos which are part of the planet star system. Image shows that these have simply accumulated on their own. They come in and remain inside the solar system, remaining with the sun most of the time, but also going out to the planets now and then. And here's a stereo HI-1 image of the planet's core system. You can see this is the central core. You can see the large number of satellite cores. And they are covered in the envelope, which then will fly to the core inside solar makeup in different shapes. Some are spheres, some are tube-shaped, some in different shapes. So these are like on the cloud envelopes. And these cloud envelopes are made of volcanic gases. That's what cloud is, volcanic gases, which these objects create. They created when they were inside the original body of the star, which got disconnected from the power supply. So the objects all became energy depleted. That caused the outer layers to break up. So the star broke up. They lost their connection with place, in connection with each other. They now in this jumbled array. And they come in like that, surrounded by the last piece of gas that they had created. And then they make a connection to the sun or to the earth, absorb energy, and then pursue another creation. And they create some gases. That's where clouds come from. Now, I have shown that the sun is not being observed in the sky, and you may look at Article 723, entitled The Sun is Gone, the Size of Simulation, where I very, very clearly show that there is no way that the sun is in the sky. That means that the sun is not emitting light from its atmosphere, or whatever light it is able to emit is being blocked by the planet and stellar surrounding it. But since the sun was observed to go dark during the so-called SEO eclipse season, you may look at Article 824 that the planet exposes the sun to go dark for more details. It is more likely that the huge number of objects in the sun's corona have made it impossible for it to emit light, simply because the energy drain from all the planet exports is too much for the sun to be able to continue to go dark. And I show in Article 771 entitled The Artificial Sun Orbiting the Earth that the real sun has been replaced by an artificial sun simulation system, which includes a grid array of simulators in orbit. And you can see this is one of the simulators which was observed from a weather balloon. And the weather balloon in this case is not moving. It's looking at the same object. And it suddenly starts dimming. You can see this little white speck seems to be part of the system there. The camera is still looking at it. There's the same little speck. It goes dark, dims and goes dark. Takes about 2 minutes to go dark. It switches off. So we know, of course, that this is an artificial device. We know it's an artificial device as well because there were many of them. This was one of 5. Because in the next images, and you may look at Article 771, and I show that there, as the camera turns around in 360 degrees, it finds another 4 exactly the same as this one. Also, as the camera comes up through the atmosphere, this light source that it sees up there gets larger. So it has to be very close to the Earth. It has to be in orbit around the Earth. And there are many of them. There's actually a grid array of them. They're obviously controlled by an artificial intelligence type of computer system, very sophisticated, which simulates the sun in the sky, the different hours, the different latitudes, the different seasons, everything that we would expect if there was a real sun, except that it doesn't look quite the same. Now, some of the current solar or space weather data, which is supposedly picked up by connection because it drops down, makes contact with the surface, and then shortly after, within a few seconds, you start to get thunder and you start to walk across the cloud. Sometime after that, it goes forward because the object is now creating water and needs to rain. So this is a rain creation when it is still and the tornadoes, of course, produce stronger connections, so they are able to absorb energy much faster. And I detail that in other articles. Now here, you may look at article 695 entitled Planets Create Water Started at the Flood, where I explain my thinking behind the deduction that they create water. And here's a large one. This must be a very large stellar core. This is the connection. This is its spout connection. It uses this cloud envelope to make a connection with the Earth. And this one is a tornado, the typical tornado. You see, this material we see here actually comes from the Earth's surface. It pulls out up towards the stellar core material from the surface of the Earth because of the strong gravitational anomaly. It creates a ring around the central section where gravity reverses it upwards. Whilst the normal water-creating stellar cores do not produce such strong gravitational anomalies. And all we get is part of its cloud envelope dropping down. This is the spout cloud envelope. It has material that's different and connects to a certain spot on the surface. And this is the outer cloud envelope. You can see this is dropped down to the surface to make a connection. For someone on the ground underneath all this, it will look like fog has been some fog that has fallen or come over this region. As you can see, it actually came from above. So, in conclusion, the planetary system of stellar cores is here, and it is destructive due to being made up of the positive stars, which are fast energy depleted. This means that they draw energy